Well, it looks like Gert Wilders didn't do it. Looks like he's faded into obscurity now. It's over. He didn't. He lost. So this points toward the next election in France, where Marine Le Pen, because now Gert Wilders has lost, there's a good chance that she'll lose too. Um, and so the European situation has got a little bit of a respite, meaning that that the situation that was coming, where the European Union probably would have disintegrated if these people had to get in, like Gert Wilders had to get in. He would have had a an exit vote to leave the European Union, and the same in France with Marine Le Pen. If they don't get in, though, there won't be any exit vote to leave the European Union, and the European Union gets a stay of execution a bit longer. I'm not saying that the European Union won't fall apart. I still think the European Union will fall apart, but I think the European Union has just bought itself some more time. Now, what does this mean to America? You see, if the European Union had have crumbled apart and fell apart, it would have sent a shock wave of deflation across to America. The American stock market would have collapsed. That probably would have led to the Chinese stock market collapsing and everything going into a deflationary funk. Okay, that doesn't happen because, say, the European Union now holds together longer. Well, this doesn't mean that we're not going to have a dollar demise. It's been in the works for a long time. The arrangements have been made for a long time to leave the dollar. It's because they've been eroding the power of the dollar for many years. Let's go back to about 1913. Back in 1913, what you could buy with the dollar was about 97% more than you can buy with it now. So $1 back in 1913 would now it would take like $10 or more. It takes a lot more dollars to pay for the same item. See, back then they used to have things like penny candies. You used to be able to buy penny candies. You used to be able to buy a chocolate bar, a full meal for 5 cents. Gives you the idea of the power of the dollar. They've eroded like 97% of the value of the dollar in those years between then and now. So there's only like 2 or 3% left. And they're on their way to eroding it all. Here's the thing. We are going to go into a dollar crisis. I've been preaching this, and I'll continue to preach this, that the dollar is tied to oil. And the oil price is eventually going to skyrocket. And when that happens, your dollar is only worth as much oil as you can buy with your dollar. So right now, if you can buy a barrel of oil for, say, $50, when oil goes up to $100, that means your dollar has lost half of its purchasing power, priced in oil. Because all of these guys out there who say that the dollar's backed by nothing, that's not true. The dollar is backed by oil. And it has been ever since Kissinger made the deal with the OPEC. The dollar has been backed by oil because you can only buy oil with dollars. That's why it's called the petrodollar. And so, establishing this fact, you have to understand what's coming. The oil price is only going to stay low as long as they have overproduction and oversupply in those tanks. The oil that they got in those tanks, they always overestimate how long that's going to last. They always say, oh, it's going to last until 2019 or whatever, or 2018 or whatever. That's all a bunch of baloney. Don't count on it lasting that long. What's going to happen is you're going to find that oil, they go through that oil twice or 3 times faster than they think they will. And those tanks will drop off. And when those tanks drop off, that's when you're going to see the price of oil go up. And it's not going to have a profound effect at first because the dollar's riding high. It's like over 100 on the US dollar index. I've said this before and I'll say it again. When the dollar drops below 70 on the US dollar index, that's when we're going to have our crisis. But it's not going to go down to 70 immediately. The dollar is going to go down in stages, down to 70. And see, I don't buy into some of these things that some of these guys say. I don't buy into the thing that said that the dollar is going to go up and up and up and up and up and then die. Why is it going to die? It's not going to die like that. It's not just going to go up, 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 and then disappear. What's it going to disappear into? I don't agree with that. The dollar is going to die first a slower death, but then when it goes below 70 on the US dollar index, that's when it's going to really start to die quicker, much quicker. That's when it's going to become noticeable. See, and this is what I haven't told you before, is when it drops below 70 in the US dollar index, that's when you're not going to really notice it until it gets down to 70. You're going to see a little bit of consumer price inflation, but the thing is it's not going to be severe until it drops below 70, and then you're going to see it really, the air rush out of it at that point. But on its way down to 70, it's going to drop in stages slowly. It's not going to be something real quick. And so the way I see it, we have some time. We have some time, unless we have a black swan event, like a major market crash or some deflationary event. If we don't have any deflationary events, we have a bit of time left, because it's going to take time for that oil to run out in those tanks. It's going to take time for the price of oil to go back up again, and for the dollar to slowly come down from over 100 down into the 90s and into the 80s and on its way down to 70. And these people that have been hoarding dollars, they're going to continue to hoard dollars even when the dollar drops below 70 and into the 80s and so on. It's when it drops below 70, that's when they're going to start to dishoard. And that's when you're going to notice your really profoundly high inflation rates. But at the same time, all these economists out there that are looking for the economic collapse to come, and what they point to, they say, hey, the economic collapse is coming because we see that the GDP is down or whatever, or the jobs are, all these jobs that are being created are all part-time jobs, they say, and this is proof the economy's bad and everything. And yeah, they're right. And they point to that and they say that is why the crisis is coming. But they're wrong about that. That's not why the crisis is coming. The real crisis is going to come when the economy actually picks back up and we get a real recovery. That's when you need to really watch out. As long as we're drifting along like we have been, what's called bottom bouncing. Ever since 2008, we went down to the bottom practically, and we've been kind of bottom bouncing ever since then. You know what I'm talking about. As long as we're doing that bottom bouncing, we're okay. We're not going to have our economic crash. We're not going to have our big deflation or anything problem, because what the Fed's doing is, and when we're bottom bouncing like that, they're playing that. What happens is when it goes down a little bit, they pump some money in, and when it comes up and it starts to go up and economy starts to heat up, they raise interest rates. See, was that found familiar? Today they raised interest rates. That's because it's starting to heat up a little bit. And they're pushing it back down. It'll go down a little bit, and then they'll throw some money in and heat it back up. And they can keep this little thing going along like this indefinitely. What they can't control is when you get your crisis, when the Fed can't control it. And what they can't control is when the economy starts to heat up and it starts to run away on them. Now, I'm going to explain why they can control that now, right? The economy's going along like this, right? And they're controlling it. If it starts to heat up a little bit, they raise interest rates like they did right now. They just raise interest rates. When it starts to go down like this, what do? Well, they stimulate it with a little bit of money, quantitative easing or whatever they have to do, and get it coming back up like this. And they can go along like this, and they can keep the economy balanced. But it's down low. It's depressed. It's a depressed economy, and they're keeping it balanced. They don't want it to heat up. They don't want it to stimulate to actually get the economy going, because then what'll happen is they know that that'll lead to a crisis. They got to keep it going like this, right? But here's where they're going to lose control. I'll tell you right now the secret to where they're going to lose control. The economy's going along like this, and when it starts to heat up, they raise interest rates like they did right now, right? And then it goes back down a little bit again. And they've been doing that, right? Where they lose control is when the interest rates get too high, where they can't raise them any higher. And at that point is probably around 2%, maybe 3%. I don't know. So I'm just guessing exactly how high, but I know it can't go over much over 3%, because they won't be able to service the debt, simply put. And they're raising it 25 basis points to a time, right? 25, 25, 25. What's this? The third one at 25 basis points. What are they at? 0.75? Okay. So they're just under 1%. They got another one in them easy. They can do another one easy, up to 1%. And they can even go up to 1.25 pretty easy. And they can go up to 1.5. So they can do a few more. So they got a bit of time there to play. Because they can go probably up to 2%, maybe, I don't know, maybe 3% before they're going to have trouble servicing the debt. I know they can't go to 5% because they won't be able to service the debt anymore if they start to normalize rates. So here they are, they're drifting along, and they're stuck. Once they get the rates up, say, above 2%, then what are they going to do? How are they going to cool the economy down at that point? They can't raise rates any higher then. So then when the economy starts to speed up, that's when you're going to see, and that's at the exact same time that oil is going to start to go up. So are you starting to see it now? So what's going to happen is we're going to go along for a while they're able to raise rates 0.25% to a time. So we're going to keep going with this same pattern we're going in right now, quarter percent rate hikes, until they get it up to 2 or 3% where they can't raise it anymore. And then the economy is going to start to heat up. And they're not going to be able to slow it down. What's going to happen? The velocity of money then is going to start to speed up. Right? And they won't be able to slow it down. The oil is going to start to go up in price. And they won't be able to bring it back down again. Because they've exhausted all the oil reserves. And the oil needs oil. And you got this heating up economy is going to demand more oil. See? And so what you got to have is the velocity of money creeping up. And then the banks are going to start to lend out the money again through the fractional reserve banking. And then what's going to happen is then these guys who have been hoarding money all this time, sitting on these big piles of money, they're going to say, hey, gee, look, the price of that car I wanted to buy last year, it was say, $15,000. And this year it's $20,000. And next year it's going to be $30,000. He says, Martha, I'm going to go out and buy that new car this year. I know I've been saving that money, but the car's going to be $10,000 more next year if we don't buy it this year. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to run up, and the car sales are going to go up. Everything's going to go up, and that's going to demand more oil. And the more oil price goes up, the more the dollar index is going to go down. And then the more the dollar index goes down, the more people are going to dishoard dollars. And it's going to lead to a situation where you got a hot economy. Finally, a hot economy. The feds will have their interest rate up to where they want, 2% or 3%, through all these quarter-point hikes. So you're starting to get the picture of where the economic crisis is going to actually be. It's because they're raising the interest rate slowly. You can see how many interest rates of 0.25% will it take to get it up around 2% from here. What they're going to do it about every 3 months, right? So you're probably looking at what, about 3 or 4 a year, and right now we're at 0.75. So you're looking at probably maybe a year, or just a little bit more than a year from now. You're looking at oil inventories dropping off a cliff in just about a year from now. You're looking at the Fed reaching a point where they can't raise interest rates anymore. And you're looking at the dollar index having crept back down into the 80s or something. That's when you're ready for your crisis to begin. And the crisis is going to begin like eating a piece of cream pie. It's going to be just great, because when the crisis begins, everybody's going to be getting jobs, the economy's going to get fueled up, and everything else. And that's when you're going to start to see the first signs. The first signs of the actual crisis is going to be when you see prices going up on everything. That's when these are the warning signs. And when you see the economy just really scooting along really good, and you see the stock market going up all the time, and you see the prices of everything, including everything, gold, silver, everything going up, Bitcoin going up, everything going up, and everybody's working, that's when you got to watch out, because as they start to go up, everything starts to go up. It's going to accelerate faster and faster and faster and faster, like a runaway train, and nobody's going to be able to stop it. The Fed can't stop it, because if they try to create money, this is their own big tool. Creating money is their big tool. That's the big tool in their toolbox. If they try to create money, if they do helicopter money or stuff, they're just going to make it heat it up faster. See, the thing's runaway inflation. And they can't raise interest rates then at that point because the U.S. debt by then will, instead of 20 trillion, by then we'll be up to 30 trillion. Well, maybe not quite that high, 25 trillion, right? And climbing. And so they won't be able to do anything except watch her go. Stand back and watch her go. And that's when you're going to get your not a hyperinflation, it's going to be a super hot inflation, if not hyperinflation. And that's what's going to be the destroyer. And that's what everybody that has been putting gold away and silver away, this is what they've all been waiting for. It hasn't come, and they've been looking for it. All these economists have been saying, hey guys, look, when your hyperinflation's coming is when you see the economy getting bad. And they point to this. They say, look, the jobless rate this month is bad, and the economy's bad and everything. And they say, because the economy's all bad, this is why we're going to have our hyperinflation. No, that's a sign that you're not going to have your hyperinflation. The sign you're going to have your hyperinflation is when the economy finally starts to boil up and get good, really good. You see, that's the beginning of it. And see, this is where they're all missing the point. This is the big point they're missing. And so we haven't had this economic recovery yet. But trust me, it's coming. It's coming when the oil price starts to go up. Because that's going to create a lot of jobs. Do you agree with me that when the oil price goes up again, and they start to go back and they start to drill for oil everywhere and they are hiring everyone, that's going to help create jobs too. And you're going to find that that's going to come in the same time frame as Trump is out there doing his infrastructure and stuff. And that's going to create a lot of jobs and stuff too. And his defense spending, increase in the military, and he's going to be sucking money out of the debt. As he sucks that money out of the debt, makes the debt go up higher. That's going to make it harder for the Fed to raise rates because they're going to have to. They cannot. Listen to me. They cannot raise rates too high to service that debt. They've got to service that debt, and they can't raise rates too high, probably 2 or 3%, right? But they got a little bit of room right now, see? And so right now, we're not in danger of the hyperinflation just yet. We're not in danger just yet, unless some black swan event comes out of nowhere that I don't know about. And I'm going to tell you what, I was thinking that Europe could have been that black swan, but tonight I'm starting to think different. I'm starting to think that Europe is going to settle down again. Going to settle down, I think. Like Europe was a brewing pot, and I was worried she might explode. But now I seem to see that with Wilders losing, Geert Wilders losing, it's like the pot's settling back down again. The steam is settling back down in the pot. That's what I see. And so that black swan didn't happen. And so only other thing I kind of see right now for a black swan event might be China. Could possibly be China. The United States is actually maybe the United States stock market if it crashed, but it is oversold. But I could see it going even more oversold. Or it could crash. I mean, that's the United States stock market. If anybody tells you that they know what the United States stock market is going to do, what the Dow Jones is going to do, if they tell you they know for absolute certainty, they're a liar. That thing is as unpredictable as that's the most unpredictable thing there ever was in this planet. You know, to try to actually predict it in any way meaningful. It could go down, it could go up. Look, I'll tell you how unpredictable it is. Let me prove my point. Do you remember they were saying that if Trump got elected, there's going to be a stock market crash? The stock market went up. Didn't crash. So I mean, the stock market, that thing is hard to predict. So here's the thing, boys. Don't look for the crisis to come when times are like they are right now, because the Fed is playing that little thing. Where if it goes down, they add a little bit of money in. If it boils up hot, they raise interest rates. And why are they raising interest rates right now? She got a little bit hot. They start a little bit of steam coming out of the pot, and so they raise interest rates now to cool the pot down. They're playing this game, and they can continue to play this game as long as interest rates, as long as they can service the debt, and as long as interest rates are low enough that they can service the debt, they can keep raising them. And so, in my estimation, right now at 0.75, we got another maybe 2 or 3 more interest rate hikes at least before they have real trouble to service the debt. And so they'll keep cooling this pot off, and then they'll keep heating it up and cooling it off and heating it up, and they'll keep playing this game. And as long as oil's plentiful, like it is right now coming out of the ground, it's plentiful mostly because of the Permian oil basin. You know, and all that oil that's in the Permian oil basin, and of course, you know, if the price goes up on oil, they'll pump more out of the Permian oil basin. So we got a little bit of time left, I think. I'm just gonna guess that if we don't get nothing that's happening in Europe in the next little while, Europe was the trigger point I was really looking at, and if Europe settles back down again, we got a little bit of a respite before the price of oil starts to climb back up, and before the real trouble starts to hit. I would say we got a little bit. Now I might be proven wrong, you know, but I think we got a little bit of time left before the trouble starts. But when the trouble starts, the thing to watch for is the heating up economy. Okay, that's what to watch for. Is the economy, is the velocity of money starting to go up, and the jobs really starting to go up, and we're seeing that starting to happen now. But the Fed has enough room where they can cool it off by raising interest rates. And you notice what they did? That's exactly what they did. They noticed that. They noticed the economy heating up, and they're scared, and they're cooling her down. And the thing is okay, here's a point I want to make. Another point before I'm done, okay? Because I know I'm going on a little bit about this, but one more point I want to make. Trump is coming to loggerheads with the Fed. Trump wants to heat her up. He wants to heat her up as fast as he can heat her up, and he wants to take the dollar down a notch and get this process going. But Trump doesn't realize what it'll lead to. I think Trump is actually thinking that he's doing a good thing by heating her up and getting the economy going and creating jobs and stuff. He doesn't realize that'll lead to hyperinflation. And I think that he's well-meaning, that he really wants to make America great again. And I love that idea. You know, I'm all for it. But the thing is what it'll lead to is, because we're in a trap, we've created all this liquidity in the system. We've through 7 years of quantitative easing and all this kind of stuff, and 0% interest rates and ZIRP and 0% interest rate policy. We created this hoard of money out there. It's still there. It's sitting in the banks. It's waiting to go. It's rattling in its cage. And as soon as you open that cage door, it's just going to spring free. And the thing is this overabundance of money, and also the oil too at the same time, like I explained before. It's going to be a wash of money when it finally comes. When the hyperinflation actually finally comes, it's going to be more profound than you ever thought it would be. There's going to be more of an ocean of hyperinflation than you ever thought possible. Thank you very much for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.